Hello and good morning, all of you, to yet another vlog of cost audit. And this time I'm going to discuss the provisions of cost accounting standards. One by one, I'm going to discuss all the cost accounting standards. And please note that this is just a revisionary session and you have to do whatever is being taught in this video along with the practical questions which are given in the notes, and also you have to do the details of all the cost accounting standards as well. I'm just going to discuss some key aspects or important aspects of each cost accounting standards just for revision purposes. So let's start with CAS 1 today. I'm going to discuss CAS 1, which is the basic CAS of the series of 24 CASs of cost accounting standards. This CAS was revised in 2015. It was issued way back but was revised recently, and this CAS will carve out the basics of costing. So basics which we need to adopt in our costing principles, in our costing practices, in our costing cost sheets. Those basic principles will be enumerated by this CAS. Please note that the principles which are carved out by CAS 1 are to be used in all the other CASs. So this CAS is mother of all other CASs, and the provisions which are enumerated in this CAS will be applicable to all other CASs with some exceptions in some of the CASs. So let's start with CAS 1, classification of cost. So this standard deals with the principles to be followed for classifying cost in the cost statement required for fulfilling the statutory obligation. Now please tell me, what is this statutory obligation? This statutory obligation is cost audit plus cost records. So those companies who have to maintain their cost records, or those companies who have to get their cost audit done, they have to mandatorily follow this cost accounting standard. Objective. Now what is the objective of this standard? The objective of this standard is to bring uniformity and consistency in the principles of classification of cost for disclosure purposes. Now there are two words used in this objective. One is uniformity, second is consistency. So this CAS is asking you to maintain uniformity in your principles of classification and also maintain consistency in the principles of classification. Now sir, what is the meaning of these two words? Are these two words same in their context, or there is some other different context in which these two words are used? What is the difference between uniformity and consistency? Now let me tell you the difference between uniformity and consistency, and you can note it down somewhere in your notebook. What do you mean by uniform? Uniform means same or similar principles are used for costing in various companies of the same industry. So suppose you are in leather industry, then your cost accounting principles should be uniform as per the leather industry. You cannot follow cost accounting principles of, say, plastic industry. So there has to be uniformity in the cost accounting principles. And secondly, while preparing your cost statement, you have to be uniform in all the cost statements. You have to uniformly apply the principles, the cost accounting principles in all the cost statements. So suppose the classification which has been chosen by you is direct material cost, direct labor cost and overheads. You have to use this classification in preparation of entire cost sheet. So uniformity means same or similar cost accounting principles are used by similar companies which are there in the market, and the same and similar principles are used by you, your company, in preparing the cost records of the entire company. So sometimes there are more than one businesses which a company is dealing in. In that case, of course, you have to see the principles which are being followed by the industry as well as the principles which are being followed by your company. Second word is consistency. Consistency means same or similar principles are used year on year. So for example, if in the past year you have used, say, first in first out method of elementary valuation, then there is no reason for you to change that methodology in the current year. You have to be consistent in your approach. Year to year, your accounting policies should be same or similar. Only if there are specific conditions which are given in the CAS itself, only if those conditions are met, then you are allowed to deviate from your cost accounting principles. Otherwise, you have to maintain uniformity and consistency while applying the cost accounting principles. So these are the two important words which are to be remembered by you while revising the objective of cost accounting standard. Your accounting principles should be uniform and should be consistent. Next, let's start with the definition of abnormal cost. Now you must have heard that abnormal cost is a typical cost or a different cost which is incurred in unusual circumstances. We have read abnormal cost in our in-depth. But now let us see what is the technical definition of abnormal cost as per CAS 1. So as per the CAS 1, abnormal cost means an unusual or atypical cost whose occurrence is usually irregular and unexpected and or due to some abnormal situation of the production or operation. Now let us dissect this definition into few parts. Let us see what are the constituents of abnormal cost. So what is abnormal cost? Abnormal cost is nothing but a unusual or atypical cost. So the definition of abnormal cost is that it is unusual or atypical cost. This is the definition of abnormal cost. Now after this definition, the CAS uses a word which says abnormal cost is an unusual cost or atypical cost whose occurrence is usually irregular and unexpected. So for classifying as abnormal cost, the occurrence of that cost should fulfill two criteria. So the prime thing is unusual or atypical cost. It has to be unusual and atypical cost. Along with condition of unusual and atypical cost, it has to fulfill one more condition, which is that it should be irregular. And the word used is and. It should be unexpected. So if the cost is expected and irregular, it would not qualify as abnormal cost. Or if the cost is regular but unexpected, then also it is not an abnormal cost. So it has to fulfill the two limbs of being an abnormal cost. The two limbs are it has to be irregular and it has to be unexpected. Both conditions are to be satisfied cumulatively. Now the next condition which is given in the definition is that and or due to some abnormal situation. Now this is the third limb. So this is the first limb, this is the second limb, this is the third limb. So abnormal cost definition is unusual or atypical cost. That is the standard definition. That is the standard word which is used. Now the features of abnormal cost are segregated into three portions. The features are: number one, it should be irregular; number two, it should be unexpected; number three, it should occur due to some abnormal situation. Now please note that situation number one and situation number two are to be satisfied cumulatively because the conjunction which is used is and the third condition may or may not be satisfied conjunctively due to some abnormal situation. This provision may be there or may not be there. So first two conditions are mandatorily to be required to be satisfied, and the third condition The word used is and or, hence the third condition is an optional condition. You may fall into third condition or you may not fall into third condition. Then also, if you are fulfilling the first and the second condition, then you are covered by the definition of abnormal cost. So let us read the definition of abnormal cost once again. Definition is an unusual or atypical cost whose occurrence is usually irregular and unexpected and or due to some abnormal situation of operation or production. Next definition is administrative overheads. Now what is administrative overheads? Administrative overheads is cost of all activities related to general management and administration of an enterprise. Please underline these two words. Administrative overhead means general management and administration. Now there are some exclusions which are given from the definitions. So these are not to be included as administrative overheads. What are the exclusions? Exclusions are: number one, production overheads are not to be termed as admin overheads. Number two, marketing overheads are not to be termed as administrative overhead. Number three, interest and finance charges are not to be termed as admin overheads. And number four, admin overheads relating to production, factory works or manufacturing are not termed as admin overheads. So admin overheads has four exclusions. Exclusion number one, production overheads. Exclusion number two, marketing overheads. Exclusion number three, interest and finance charges. And exclusion number four, admin overheads which are directly related to production, factory and works and manufacturing overheads. So the fourth exclusion is very, very important exclusion, because in this exclusion, even when the expenditure is in the nature of administrative cost, even then it is not classified as administration cost, because it is related to production, factory, works or manufacturing. So I'll give you a simple example. Suppose if you have a reception at your office, headquarters office, then that reception, maintenance cost of that reception may be clubbed as admin overheads. But if you have a similar reception in your factory, in your place where production happens, in your place where manufacturing happens, then your cost will not be admin overhead, because that cost will be closely related to the production. It will not be termed as, or it will not be included in admin overhead. So very, very important definition. You have to dissect this definition into exclusion and the main definition. Main definition is general management and admin cost. Exclusion is these four exclusions which I have just discussed. Next, classification of cost. Now classification of cost is the arrangement of item of cost in logical groups having regard to their nature. So this is nothing but clubbing of the cost of similar nature or similar purpose. We have to club the cost of similar nature or purpose into one cost. This entire process of clubbing is known as classification of cost. So we pool or we accumulate the entire cost into various subheads. This is known as classification of cost. And for purpose of cost sheet, we need to many a times accumulate all our cost into some classifications, like direct material cost. Direct material cost can be an aggregate of very many, a lot of other cost, which is aggregated to form a direct material cost. So they have given two ways in which you can classify the cost. One is nature. However, the CAS specifies that nature is the subjective classification. It will change from person to person and company to company. Therefore, a better way to classify your cost is purpose. Please see for what purpose is this cost used. For example, in admin overheads, just now we have read that if the purpose of admin overhead is production, factory, works or manufacturing, then that admin overhead is not to be included in admin overheads, but it is to be included somewhere else. And in later cases, we will read where would that cost be included. So even though the nature of the cost is admin overheads, the CAS is requiring you not to club with admin overheads because its purpose is something else. So nature is subjective classification. Purpose is objective classification. So obviously we will prefer purpose over subjective classification, which is nature. Now next, a very simple definition, conversion cost. Conversion cost is the production cost excluding cost of direct material. So conversion cost is basically direct labor cost plus overheads. This is conversion cost. Next, what is cost? Cost is a measurement in monetary terms of the amount of resources used for the purpose of production of goods or rendering services. So cost is the total resources which you have consumed for purpose of production of goods or rendering of services. So this is nothing but consumption of resources. So consumption of resources is known as cost. For example, material cost, the price of material consumed is material cost. The wages that you give to your workers is direct wages or the labor cost. So cost is nothing but an aggregate of all the resources which are being consumed in the process of production. Next, what is a cost center? Cost center is any unit of an entity selected with a view to accumulating all cost. Now we need to find what is the profitability of our organization. To find the profitability of our organization and then to bifurcate or split that profitability into various subunits, I need to accumulate all cost and put it in one cost center. This is known as cost center. So for example, if I am producing say soap, shampoo, detergent, then soap is a different cost center, shampoo is a different cost center, and detergent is a different cost center. These are the three cost centers, and I will accumulate all the costs related to soaps in the soap cost center, relating to detergent in the detergent cost center, and relating to shampoo in the shampoo cost center. So cost center is nothing but a unit in which we accumulate all our cost. The unit can be division, department, section, group of plant, machinery, group of employees, or combination of several units. So cost center may be of following types: personal and impersonal cost centers. What do you mean by personal cost centers? Personal cost centers are cost centers which indicate towards some human beings. Personal cost centers indicate towards some human beings, and impersonal cost centers indicate towards non-living beings. So these are the two kind of cost centers which are there, personal and impersonal. I've already given you an example of impersonal cost centers. Say I'm producing soap, detergent and shampoo. Then soap, detergent and shampoo are my impersonal cost centers. Then sir, what can be the example of personal cost center? Example of personal cost centers can be service providers. So if you have service providing industry, so for example, if there is a big barber shop in Delhi, that barber shop has three barbers which cut hair of the individuals, then those three barbers have a different clientele, have a different kind of cost, their way of cutting hair is different. Then those three barbers are three different personal cost centers, and the entire cost of that barber shop can be subclassified into those three barbers. So in case of service industry, where the services are dependent on the individuals, there we adopt the personal cost centers, and the industries where individuals take a back seat and the primary bifurcation is on the basis of products or on the basis of location or on the basis of region, etc., then we use impersonal cost centers. Next is operating cost centers and support service cost centers. So operating cost centers are those cost centers where actual operations happen, and support service cost centers are those cost centers which support the operating cost centers. So this is the difference between operating cost center and support cost center. Then comes the cost object. What do you mean by cost object? It is an activity, contract, cost center, customer, process, product, project, service, or any other object for which costs are ascertained. So when you ascertain a particular cost for any of these activities, contracts, cost centers, customers, then that is known as cost object. So cost object is nothing but a unit for which the cost is incurred. Any unit for which a particular cost is incurred is known as cost object. Cost center is a unit which accumulates all cost within itself. And cost object is a unit or activity for which cost is ascertained. This is known as cost object. Now, a very simple definition. What is cost of production, sir? Because this is very often used in our cost sheets, and it is very important definition. Sir, what is cost of production? Cost of production is nothing but cost of material, direct employee, direct expenses, production overheads, quality control cost, packing cost, R&D cost, and admin overheads relating to production. Admin overheads which are not relating to production, they are not included in definition of cost of production because they are included in the definition of admin overheads themselves. So this is the difference between administrative overheads and the overheads which are taken into cost of production. Next, adjustment of stock of work in progress, finished goods, recoveries from sale of scrap, etc. should be made while computing cost of production. This is an obvious thing that cost of production will obviously have an impact of opening and closing work in progress or finished goods or raw material while computing the cost of production. Now, what is a cost unit? Cost unit is a form of measurement of volume of production of a product. So let us understand it by way of an example. If you are producing or procuring power, then your cost unit is megawatt hour. If you are producing cement, then your cost unit is metric ton. Automobile, number of manufacturing done. Transportation, ton kilometer. So these are cost units. Now a simple definition of what is a prime cost. Prime cost is nothing but an aggregate of direct material cost, direct employee cost, and direct expenses. You have studied in your inter, and you have in depth studied in your final as well in your costing paper. So this is a very straightforward definition. Then there are certain other definitions like production overheads. Production overheads means the cost of production of product and rendering services, which include production overhead, factory overhead, work overhead, manufacturing overhead. All these terms denote the same meaning. Production overheads include admin cost relating to production, factory, works, and manufacturing, which was excluded while computing the admin cost is included while computing the production cost if its purpose is defined as for the purpose of production, factory, works, or manufacturing. Then the semi-variable cost. Semi-variable cost is a cost that contains elements of both fixed cost and variable elements. So we have an example of semi-variable cost, which is electricity, which is constant till a particular number of units and is variable beyond a particular number of units. So this is semi-variable cost. Similarly, variable cost, which changes with the volume of the activity. It changes with the volume of activity. This is variable cost. And last, the standard cost. Standard cost is the predetermined cost of a product. So if you have been using a cost of the product in past, then you can use the same cost in your standard costing for the current year as well, which is a predetermined cost of a product or a service based on technical specification, efficient operating conditions. Standard costs are used as scale of reference. It is a measurement tool. It is just like a barometer of analyzing your current year cost. So it is scale of reference to compare the actual cost with the standard cost with a view to determine variances, if any, and analyze cost of variances and take proper measure to control them. So this is standard cost. So this is all for today's vlog, and I'll be coming up with more vlogs subsequently. Till that time, you can just read through the entire CAS which is pending, and we can probably then quickly revise the remaining CAS. And please do subscribe to this channel, because it is important that you guys see all the videos which I am uploading on this channel, because I am getting a lot of requests from some of the students for the videos which I have already uploaded in past. So guys, please subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss on any updates and you are not fumbling on the basic concepts. Just for your information, I have already shared a video on cost accounting standard, basics of cost accounting standard before. It is available on the channel. Please see that video first and then see CAS 1 video. And please attempt the practical questions which are given for abnormal cost. They come in the examination quite often. They are given along with this study note for the abnormal cost. Please attempt those practical questions yourself. And yes, you have been studying well and you have been studying fine for many months now. But now is the time when you have to really buck up and you have to really come to the mark, because if you have studied for say 6 months, then if you don't study for the next 2 months, it will be a waste. However, if the students who have studied for say they have not studied for say last 6 months, but have studied in these next 2 months, then they will be able to secure good marks. So this is the difference which will be created if you study in the month of October and November for your December attempts. So guys, study well, all the best and happy studying.